Hello ladies and gentlemen, thank you immensely for joining us on this News Over For You Television Africa. But today we debut this news segment, of course, in the Central African nation of the Central African Republic, where the circle of reflection of the movement for a Republican Constitution demands for the rewriting of the Constitution of March 30, 2016. The Circle of Reflection Movement for the Republican Constitution, acronym the CRU, organized on Saturday, October 22nd, 2022, as citizens marching the cities of Bangui and some provinces of the country. It was at the end of this march that the PKO, that its coordinator Mr. Hippolyte Ngate, addressed the President of the Republic, His Excellency Professor Faustin Archange Touadéra, with a memorandum. The content of the memorandum requires the rewriting of the Constitution of March 30, 2016 and the convocation of the Central Africans by referendum. There were thousands from the 10 districts of Bangui and its surrounding to gather around PKO in the city center of the capital to demand that the President Faustin Archange Touadéra respect their desire to see the Central African Republic adopt a new constitution that reflects the socio-political reality of the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, we now take you to West Africa, where we are now in Guinea-Conakry, where at least 5 people were injured after security forces fired at anti-government protesters on Thursday last week in Guinea's capital, Conakry. The demonstrators were pushing for the military government that took over power in September 2021 to restore the country to civilian rule. The rest of the story is in the following reports. It was a dark Thursday in Guinea's capital, Conakry, as over 5 people were injured after security forces fired at anti-government protesters, an opposition coalition said. Demonstrators pushing for the military government that took power in September 2021 to restore civilian rule set up roadblocks across the city and burnt tires. The National Front for the Defense of the Coalition, the FNDC, said in a statement 5 suffered gunshot wounds and 1 is in a critical condition, though the police is yet to make a statement. Sporadic protests have taken place in Guinea since the government was overthrown and replaced with military leaders that have dragged their feet on promises to hand power back to civilians. Co-leader and interim President Mamadi Doumbouya has proposed a 36-month transition to elections, which regional leaders and opposition politicians have rejected. Following the criticism of the 36-month timeline, the military regime banned all public demonstrations. Let's recall that at least 4 people were shot and several wounded during anti-government protests in July. A team of representatives from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, is currently in Guinea to discuss a more reasonable transition timeline after the bloc imposed economic and financial sanctions on the country. Just to reiterate that in Guinea, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has terminated its mission there in the West African nation. Of course, resolutions have been made. We now stay in West Africa this time around to take you to Burkina Faso, where Captain Ibrahim Traoré, who took over power in the coup on September 30, 2022, was sworn in on October 21st as the transitional president by the Constitutional Council. No foreign representative has attended his swearing-in ceremony. The rest of the story is with you, Fotso. I swear before the people of Burkina Faso and on my honor to preserve, respect, enforce and defend the Constitution, the Transition Charter and the laws, to do everything possible to guarantee justice for all the inhabitants of Burkina Faso.
While taking note of the assets of the newly invested President Bourhaima Sissé, interim President of the Constitutional Council sent him back to the exercise of his function.
Le Conseil constitutionnel.
The Constitutional Council takes note of your oath and sends you back to the exercise of your functions, addressing the congratulations of the elders to Captain Traoré.
This is the second coup that the Constitutional Council invests in 8 months after the swearing-in of Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba, who came to power in a coup at the end of January before being himself overthrown September 13. The existence of the nation is in danger, declared Ibrahim Traoré after his inauguration in reference to the recurrent jihadist attacks which undermine the country. We are facing an unprecedented security and humanitarian crisis. Our objectives are none other than the reconquest of the territory occupied by these orders of terrorists, he added. The hearing in question was held before representatives of the constituted bodies, the army, and the living forces of the country, and as a major fact, no foreign representative attended the said ceremony. It should be remembered that this investiture was provided for in the transition charter adopted last week by the National Assise, bringing together the living forces of the country, having unanimously designated Captain Traoré President of the Transition, Head of State, Supreme Commander of the National Armed Forces. Moreover, it is indicated according to Article 4 of this charter that, I quote, the mandate of the President of the Transition ends with the inauguration of the President for the presidential election scheduled for July 2024. On January 24, soldiers led by Lieutenant Colonel Damiba and regrouped within a military government called the Patriotic Movement for Safeguarding and Restoration, MPSR, overthrew President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore, criticized for not having bring peace. On September 30, 2022, a new coup brought Captain Traoré to power. At only 34, he thus becomes the youngest head of state in Africa, joining the ranks of 2 other perpetrators of coups, Mamadi Doumbouya of Guinea and Assimi Goïta from Mali.
Thank you, Jefford, for that report. As we earlier reiterate that after the swearing in Burkina Faso's new military leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré has named jurist and author Apollinaire Joachim Ikelem Tembala as the interim prime minister of the West African nation in a statement revealed on Friday. Ladies and gentlemen, from one region to the next, we now take you to the eastern part of the African continent, where we are now talking the Tigrayan crisis in Ethiopia. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has said the war in the northern Tigrayan region will end and peace will definitely prevail. He made these remarks on Thursday last week when he was inaugurating a talent development center in Omia Regional State. We come back with you, Fotso, for the rest of that story.
The situation in northern Ethiopia will come to an end. Peace will prevail. We will not continue fighting forever. I believe that in a short period of time, we will stand with our Tigrayan brothers for peace and development, Mr. Abiy said. He urged the Ethiopians to work together for the country's prosperity and not to be divided along ethnic and religious lines. On Thursday, the Ethiopian government accepted an invitation by the African Union to participate in a peace talks to be held on 24th October in South Africa to end the war that has killed an unspecified numbers of people and displaced millions. It came on the same day Tigrayan rebels accused Ethiopian and Eritrean forces of killing 7 youth in a town that was captured by the Federal Army on Tuesday, October 18, 2022.
Let's now talk cholera at the world at large, of course, the globe, where the World Health Organization says it will temporarily suspend the standard 2-dose vaccination regimen for cholera, replacing a single dose due to the vaccine shortages and rising outbreaks worldwide. The announcement was made last week during a press briefing. The rest of the story is in the following reports. The World Health Organization said on Wednesday it will temporarily suspend the standard 2-dose vaccination regimen for cholera, replacing it with a single dose due to vaccine shortages and rising outbreaks worldwide. The United Nations agency said the exceptional decision reflects the grave state of the cholera vaccine stockpile at a time when countries like Haiti, Syria, Malawi are fighting large outbreaks of these deadly diseases which spread through contact with contaminated water and food. As of October 9, Haiti had confirmed 32 cases and 18 deaths from the disease, while many cases are still awaiting confirmation. According to the World Health Organization, in a statement on Wednesday, the pivoting strategy will allow for the doses to be used in more countries at a time of unprecedented rise in cholera outbreaks worldwide. The World Health Organization's Emergency Director Mike Ryan, during the briefing, said the change in strategy was a sign of the scale of the crisis caused by a lack of focus on safe sanitation and immunization for all at risk. The one-dose strategy had proved to be effective as a response to cholera outbreaks, the agency said, although the duration of protection is limited and appears to be much lower in children. The disease often causes no or mild symptoms, but serious cases causes acute diarrhea and can kill within hours if untreated. Cholera cases have surged this year, especially in places of poverty and conflict, with outbreaks reported in 29 countries and fatality rates rising sharply. A cholera outbreak in Syria has already killed at least 33 people, posing a danger across the front lines of the country's 11-year-old war and stirring fears in crowded camps for the displaced. After the southwest region in Cameroon, a cholera outbreak in North Cameroon refugee camp has killed 3 people and infected at least 36, the United Nations Refugee Agency said on Wednesday. The first case was confirmed over the weekend in the Minawa refugee camp, which hosts around 75,000 people who fled Boko Haram insurgents in neighboring Nigeria.
Ladies and gentlemen, to wrap up this newscast, we now talk COVID-19 away from cholera, where according to the World Health Organization, COVID-19 vaccination coverage has stagnated in half of African countries, while the number of doses administered monthly declined by over 50% between July and September 2022. Although Africa is far from reaching the year-end global target of protecting 70% of its population, modest progress has been made in vaccinating high-risk population groups, particularly the elderly. The end of the COVID-19 pandemic is within sight, and of course, as long as Africa continues to lag far behind the rest of the world in reaching its target population widespread protection, there is a dangerous gap which the virus can of course exploit to come roaring back, said Dr. Mochidi Somoiti, the World Health Organization's Regional Director for the African continent. Ladies and gentlemen, it will be on that note that we draw down the curtains of this newscast over for you Television Africa. I have been Jakes Nabise for our presentation. Stay in company of our programs.